Welcome to Dr Joe Unplugged. The topics discussed in this podcast will reflect my opinions and are not in any way to be regarded as medical advice. Here's one from the "it actually makes some sense, but how do they even work these things out" file. Anybody who's a parent, and particularly if you've got more than one child, will know that there is a lot to think about. There's a lot to think about. Varies as years go by, but there's a lot of juggling, planning, thinking, organising, asking questions, dealing with issues as they come up. It's been going since the year dot, because if not, none of us would be here, obviously. And we also know that challenges to our brain is good for our cognitive health. There's plenty of work that shows new challenges, whether it's doing crossword puzzles or Sudokus or continuing to do some sort of work, causing the brain to have to think about issues that it hasn't thought about or issues that it may have thought about before in a different way, creates new neural pathways. So that's connections between nerve cells. It doesn't create new nerve cells, but it creates new circuitry. And that, I suppose, is the cognitive or thinking equivalent of exercise. If we exercise our muscles, they get stronger. If we exercise, in inverted commas, our brains and our thinking, it gets better as well. Parenthood linked to lower cognitive decline with age. Research suggests the challenges of parenting may strengthen brain networks and potentially guard against age-related decline. And I'll quote, and we'll put this in the chat, I suspect it may be paywalled. Not sure, so apologies in advance, but it's a good article. You can probably find something similar if you Google it. Parenthood reshapes priorities, schedules, and indeed the brain itself. While short-term brain changes in parents are well documented, it's unclear whether they last. Now a study suggests that parenthood may give you a younger brain as a result of brain restructuring that safeguards against age-related cognitive decline. Researchers found that parents have better brain connections that typically weaken with age. As the number of children increased, so did brain connectivity, suggesting a protective effect against age-related changes. Now, immediately you might be thinking, well, hang on, my mother or father got dementia, and by definition they're your parent. So no, it's not a force field. Nothing is a force field in this life. But to quote one of the researchers, when parents tell me they're losing their minds, I like to think they're actually rewiring their brains. Says Melissa Schwartz, a coach for highly sensitive families and adults at Leading Edge Parenting, who was part of the study. So she hasn't got an axe to grind in all of this, albeit obviously she's involved with the parenting coaching. Their children are pushing them to the edges of their neural wiring and building stronger, healthier, and more effective neural pathways. Now that's really interesting because we come back to the exercise analogy. It is said and thought, and I think it is true, that it's that last rep or two that just pushes your muscles that little bit further than they've gone before. And what they're saying here is that getting pushed to the edge of your tether, and I'm not going to say it's pleasant at the time. It can literally do you, in inverted commas, do your head in, for want of a better term. But it's actually doing you some good. Who knew? But it makes sense. It makes sense that if we are challenging ourselves, or we are being challenged, perhaps more correctly in this scenario, that we do have to think about different things. And with parenting, there is, as I mentioned at the top, and any parent will be familiar with this, that there are a lot of juggles. And even more so when you've got schedules and you've got one child going to, basketball, one child going to netball or to football or to ballet or to gym or to music or to a play date. The list does go on. And then you've got to think about what they're having for lunch, what they're going to wear in a younger age group. And then, the what you have to think about does change as years go by. But all along the path, it is causing your brain to have to think, and often about that which you may not have thought about before or not thought about it in that way. So that's really good. And I'll quote here, parents had increased brain connectivity in their movement and sensory processing regions and in networks involved in social thinking, visual processing and attention. And these networks typically declined after the age of 40. The researchers did MRI scans, or looked at results at least from about 40,000 people from the UK Biobank. Now look, again, correlation isn't absolutely causation, so we can't absolutely say that this is, which it isn't, a double-blinded randomised control study. You couldn't do it even if you wanted to. And to be fair, it's not the only way of looking at the world. There's a role for them, but it's not the only way of looking at data and the world. Again, mums and dads had similar brain changes suggesting that being a parent was the driver. Again, all that makes a lot of sense. What I'm going to say next is going to sound a bit odd, but I think it's important to say. No, doesn't mean that if you're not wanting to have children that one can recommend it for medical purposes. No, it's not like that. But, parenting gets knocked a lot these days. The notion of family has taken a hit, which I think is unfortunate because the family is the building blocks of society. And we see that in mammals as well, and particularly in the primates, of which human beings are a member. That community is important and the primary community is the family. And we do see in different ways, shapes and forms, attempt to to divide the family and change the allegiance of children to the state rather than to their parents. Not saying every parent does a good job, and certainly not saying that there may not be times or instances when it could be in the child's interest to not be with either or both parents. That happens. That's the exception. It does happen. But primarily, people who are always going to have the most interest in and love for a child is going to be the parent. And it's not a one-way street. I mean, apart from the obvious rewards and joys, that it might be helping to strengthen your brain is actually pretty good. And just before we finished today, also interesting work about the benefits of nurturing kindness in children. And as has been noted, the world has gotten somewhat ruder, in inverted commas. Again, thanks to the response to the COVID pandemic. It's not caused by the virus; it's caused by the response. People have gotten more aggro and angry, and look, that'll settle in due course, I suspect. And it says, kindness seems to be out of fashion. In social media and politics, we're flooded with images of interactions that are hostile and bullying, and we certainly see that. And a lot of countries are not particularly well led. Again, opinions will vary on that. But kindness is basically just appreciating the feelings of others. It's not, I feel your pain, sunshine, but it's just taking stock of noting and understanding where people are at. You can't take on anybody else's burden. You can help people. And the concept of compassionate action, which is a little bit different to empathy, it's not just I feel sorry for you, it's I see a situation, and if you'd like some input, I'm happy to offer it. And again, if you are in a position to offer some help or support, and that can be as simple as a pat on the back or a there, or have you thought about approaching your problem this way? And this work says that, surprise, surprise, this can be nurtured in children. And again, that shouldn't come as a surprise. And probably a lot of that is going to come from osmosis. So if as a parent or as a role model, as an adult, you're demonstrating good, in inverted commas, behaviour and treating other people with respect and looking to assist them where you can. And please, this is not saying that you have to solve everybody's problems. You can't, you don't. Like in the aircraft, if oxygen is required, a mask will fall. Fit your own mask first before helping other people. So you don't want to, burn out from taking on everybody else's load. But, treating people with respect and kindness is not particularly difficult. Some people you just have to, as it were, turn the other cheek. And it's interesting because I've heard Eckhart Tolle talk about the notion of turning the other cheek, which is not, in his opinion, and I thought it's worth agreeing with it, it's not so much, well, you've done something bad to me, I'll let you do it again by you've hit me on the cheek and now hit me on the other cheek. No, Tolle's interpretation of it is that you just turn away or move away from those people. So turning the other cheek is turning away from those people who you don't want to associate with for whatever reason. And that's fair enough. We don't all have to associate with everybody. We can be, the word is not popular these days, but we can be discriminatory in terms of who we choose to spend time with and how we choose to spend that time. And the bottom line in all of that is treating yourself and others with kindness and respect. Thanks for listening to Dr. Joe Unplugged. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, share, and consider subscribing. Tell your friends. If there are topics you'd like to see covered, be in touch through the chat or email info@drjoe.net.au. We'll be uploading new content each Monday, and soon we'll be putting these videos out on X. You can follow me there at Dr. Joe's DIY Health.